I remember my dad and my stepmom both telling me they were worried about me when I started getting into ultras. I had not spent a whole lot of time running, and I hadn't even done really a marathon at this point when we had this conversation. And I just set my sight on running 100 miles. And I was spending a lot of time running. I mean, multiple days a week and multiple long runs a week. I was just really trying to get used to running on tired legs and doing volume. I didn't really know what else to do. And if you're training for ultras, I mean, that definitely is going to help. And I was just pretty obsessive. Like, I know I left dinners early and I was up at 2, 3 in the morning to run before work. And so my lifestyle had changed a lot. And I don't think my parents or I really knew what I was getting myself into. And we just didn't know people that did things like this. We didn't know people that ran 100-mile races. And since then, I've done a lot of different things, like a sub-3-hour marathon. I ran 10 marathons in 10 days for charity. I've ran several 100-mile races and set course records at a couple of those that have since been broken. But I remember being in their room, and it was just kind of like a comment, like it wasn't that big of a deal. But my dad said, "I'm worried about you." And I don't hear him say that a lot. I think I have a lot of my life put together. And so to hear that, I was kind of intrigued and a little taken aback. And he talked about how extreme this running is. And I'm definitely an extreme person. I'm intense. I've had many girls on dates or friends I have or just random people I run into tell me I'm intense. And I think for a while I thought that was a bad thing, and I've just leaned into that more. And yeah, I'm intense, and it has its pros and cons. I'm really good at achieving goals, right? Though that can also mean that I put things to the side that I probably shouldn't. It takes a lot of awareness, and I've learned over the years. And so it just opens up this interesting conversation of running is bad for you. And I've heard this from a lot of people, especially though, like, what about your knees when you're older? And I find this super interesting and kind of irritating, because to me, I don't see running as bad for me. And hey, maybe someone can clip this and we can come back to this video when I'm 80 and my knees are all busted, if that's what's going to happen. But I just feel like I do the right things. I stretch, I do strength training, I eat pretty clean. I'd say 70-80% of my diet's pretty good. And I think what's interesting about this is, like, we were born to run. Like, as kids, we were just running around. And as hunters and gatherers, we had to run to chase down our prey. Like, we're built for it. Like, our mechanics are built for it. And the problem is when you get to school and beyond, after elementary school, a lot of life is sitting down. And so if you have someone who's been sitting down and lived a sedentary life for 20 years, of course it's going to hurt and they're going to get injured, right? They haven't had time for their body to get used to it. But at such a young age, like, I just think about how often I ran around and never got injuries. Like, I'd fall down and bang my knee and just get up and keep running, right? And I think over time, our body's like kind of this use it or lose it mechanism. And so we run and then someday we stop and we fall, and there's so many other things I could get into on my beliefs surrounding, like, the types of shoes and the way we run and things like that. Though I'll just forever be puzzled by the whole running is bad for you type of thing. And I think, honestly, I've faced those comments with a lot more grace and understanding, in the sense that those people are projecting. And if this gives you some comfort because someone tells you you're running too much or you're doing too much or it's bad for you, chances are, I mean, this isn't for everyone, but chances are that person's, like, doesn't feel good in their body. Like, they're ashamed that they don't exercise, or maybe jealous that you can run and they can't, or you just run more or faster than they can. And so this has helped me a lot, because I used to get angry, and I think initially I was kind of upset with my dad and stepmom's comment of, "We're worried about you." And I think part of it was, yes, I'm extreme, and it was like they'd never ever heard of someone running 100 miles. But the other part of it is they didn't live the most active lifestyle, and I've seen them become more active over the years because of my example. And so if you have people out there that are telling you it's too much or it's bad for you, my story and the way I've lived my life is a good example of that being a positive thing when I ignore those comments. Not in a hateful way, not in an argumentative way. But since then, since the 300-mile races and the countless 50Ks and a couple 50 milers and all these marathons and these crazy events that I do, my dad's become way more active than I've ever seen, I think, since me being a kid. Like, he was an athlete in school and in college, and now he's walking regularly and doing weights, and he's passing his tests in the military. And it's cool to see that, because I believe I had a big role in that, of when I swung to the super extreme end of activity, the people on the other end, like my dad, with no activity, or very little, it pulled him over, and eventually he started reaching out to me for help when it came to exercise and lifting, and we lifted together for several months, and then he was kind of on his own. And I know my extremeness and my intensity, though maybe a lot and maybe too much in some situations, I think it sets the example and pulls people towards a little bit of activity and a little bit of movement. So there's too many variables to say running, like, generalized, is just bad for you. And there's too many variables to say it's good for you. Well, depending on the case, it might actually be bad for someone, and it's been bad for me when I've gotten too obsessive. It's taken away from my life. But there's also been times where it's only added and made me a better human. So I think ultimately the message is only you can figure out if it's bad or good for you or not. And you have to look at all these factors in your life and your family and your work and your sleep and all these things. And sometimes it's worth sacrificing those, and other times it's not. And so that's only for you to decide. So don't let anyone tell you if it's bad for you or if it's good for you. You have to ultimately figure that out for yourself. And it's a very personal journey. And I continue to surprise myself with what I learn when I don't listen to what other people are saying and I focus on my experience of it all. So if you like videos like these, I talk a lot about running and training and just mindsets and theories and ideas. If you like those type of things, I mean, feel free to subscribe or like or comment. And if not, that's cool. I hope you got something out of this video, and I do hope I get to see you in another one sometime soon.